Hi, and welcome to Buckle Up Podcast with your host, Shiblee McGinnis. So, this podcast episode is just an introduction of myself because I am new to this podcast world. So, I just wanted to give my listeners a brief introduction of me, who I am, why I wanted to start this podcast, and what kind of success I'm looking for to get out of this. So, let's just start with who I am. So, I am a Taurus. So, my zodiac sign is a Taurus. And I am happily married. I've been married to my husband for 6 years. We've been together for 14. I have 3 grown adult children. They're all males. And I have 1 granddaughter. And I am very family orientated. I love family. Everything is family. I love hanging out with my family. I love doing things with my family, gatherings. I just love when we all gather together because we all have busy lives. And when we come together, it's just really, really good times and great memories. So, I started this podcast because I've had a dream a long time ago that I wanted to do a podcast show, but I didn't want to do a solo one. I wanted to partner up with someone. And that person and we talked about having, a podcast, but it didn't go no further than the talk. So, moving fast forward, um, I got inspired to do this podcast because I was on IG and I was on a particular celebrity's page, and I'm not going to say this person's name or anything because I don't want any clout from this person, because this person just actually inspired me and they don't even know that they inspired me. So I was on their page and I made a comment, and I got so many views and replies from just a simple comment that I made that I said, you know what? I should do a podcast show because I've been wanting to do one for so many years. And this may be a sign for me to just go ahead and run with it. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. So here I am doing this podcast. So in this podcast, we are going to talk about everything. Everything. We're going to talk about things that are relevant. We're going to have engaging conversations that is going to be uplifting, that's going to motivate, inspire people, make people have a good day when they're listening to this podcast and wanting more from this podcast. Because I really want to do this podcast to be inspiring. I want to be able to talk about topics that people can relate to and that are inspiring and encourages them to do better in life, and whatever they are doing with their life that is positive. I want this to be a positive, successful podcast, you know. On this podcast is going to be different things, going on. Like I may have different segments of things to engage the listeners, and when they have some time and they're thinking about this podcast, and I say, oh, well, I want you guys to email me something, I want to have an interaction and a call to action on this podcast. So that is the vision of my success for this podcast, is really getting the listeners' ears and inspiring them, having them interact, and having them be their best version of themselves. And I know that this can happen. I believe that this can happen. And it's going to happen. So I just wanted to just do this introduction so that when I start talking about topics, you guys already have a kind of feel of my personality, who I am, why I'm talking about this, why I feel this kind of way about this topic, and, why it's important to me as it should be important to you, or you should know about this that's going on, and it would inspire you to, do things in your life and help someone else out. So, with this podcast, it's going to be fun, it's going to be entertaining, and we're just going to have really good vibes. Really good vibes on here. So I want to end this podcast because this is a short introduction just to introduce myself. Because I don't want to say too much about myself because I want my listeners to listen to this podcast and get to know me. Okay? So I want to end this brief introduction with this. It's Psalms 18:30. He shields all who take refuge in him. I want to say that again. He shields all who takes refuge in him. So, that means to me, because that passage can mean many things to different people. But what it means to me is he shields and protects me or yourself for those who believe in him. And you just have to believe that there is a God who protects you. So when you have a God that protects you, you don't have the spirit of fear because you know that God walks with you. And as long as you know that God walks with you, you have no fear. He will put you in places that may be fearful to you, but he's there with you every step of the way, protecting you. So I just want you guys to know that as I end this short introductory podcast. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I'll see you at the next podcast episode. Goodbye for now.